Matt Rhule says Nebraska is becoming the hunted. Is he right? We'll discuss it coming up.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, good morning, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. All you have to do is head to FanDuel.com to get started.
All right, I am Mitch Sherman of The Athletic. Connor Happer of 1620 The Zone in Omaha is here with me. It is Tuesday, 3 days from game day. Nebraska Friday Night Lights at Memorial Stadium. Big Ten opener. Illinois is coming to town. An interesting question that came out of Monday with Matt Rhule. Is Nebraska now the hunted instead of the hunter? Just like that. The Huskers are ranked number 22. They've got the fancy light show, the cool new facility, the drones. Has it really flipped just like that in a few weeks to where opponents are now again targeting Nebraska and circling that N on the schedule? Let's listen to Matt Rhule from Monday, see what he has to say about this.
Okay, this Friday night, obviously it's a ranked team, so it'll be maybe different, but we're no longer like the hunter. Like, we're no longer like the unranked team that people are like, who do we have this? Oh, we're playing Nebraska. Oh, okay, we beat them the last 4 years. Now you're the team that people are preparing for. The UNI players who I had a lot of respect for. I mean, I thought that quarterback was a dude. I liked him too. Was a dude. After the game, they talked about, hey, we talked about this game all summer long, and our guys have to understand that, and then you start putting numbers in front of your name, right? People start saying, oh, we want to go beat a ranked team, So it's not quite your question, but I just do think our guys understand you're going to see different things. So all of a sudden we come out against these last week, and they're bringing 0 in the red zone. It's like, okay, well, they got us on one. Now we need to kick a field goal. That could cost us a game at some point, right? So we have to be better in those areas, and so we're having to do a lot more situational stuff. To your point, Mitch. Because we haven't been in, haven't had to go down there at the end.
What do you think of that?
When I heard it today live, I kind of nodded my head. I was like, yeah. And now I think about it some more, and I'm like, man, I'm not so sure you're there yet. And I don't know why it worked in reverse effect for me. Nebraska is number 22 in the country, and I do think there's a large there's a large contingent in the national media who remembers Nebraska being really good, or was certainly around when Nebraska was good, or remembers whatever, and so they kind of want that, like, yeah, hey, it's kind of cool that Nebraska's good again, and it's definitely different and interesting. We love when that happens in college football, like the new cool kid in town, and Nebraska could be that team. But I don't know. I think you have to do something that says we've arrived, and that's probably like beating somebody better than you. Doing something that really shakes up the landscape. They haven't done that yet. I don't have a problem with him saying it, but I guess like if we're doing technicalities, I kind of feel like that has to happen first.
You want to hear my thought on this?
Yes.
You heard him in that answer say, well, it's not really the question that you asked. So I think Matt Rhule came into this press conference intending to get that message across. Like, he didn't get asked a question about whether Nebraska has gone from the hunter to the hunted, but he made sure that he said that. I think he wants his players to hear that, to believe that, and he can say this to the team and get the point across just as well. But he likes to do this stuff through the media sometimes. I think it maybe they tune him out if they're listening in the meeting room, but if they see it floating around on TikTok, then that hits home a little bit more. So he wanted to get that message across. That was a talking point coming in. I think he's looking for an edge. He's looking for some way to give Nebraska the psychological advantage. We saw the value of that when the Huskers played Colorado. So is Illinois coming into Lincoln saying, all right, let's go get them. We got a chip on our shoulder because everybody's saying Big Red is back. I don't think so. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's Bielema's tactic coming into this game. But if it can be something for Nebraska where they believe that they're being hunted by the programs of the Big Ten, then absolutely Matt Rhule is going to try to capitalize on that.
To be fair, like I don't think they're that far off of it. Then
it's all.
Yeah, then it changes a little bit. Nebraska's schedule just sets up in a way where you have this kind of light lead up. Not that they can't lose one of these games. You have this kind of light lead up to the back five, to that Ohio State game and the back 5 games of your schedule. And, even if they are 7-0 going into that game in Columbus, they might be a top 10 team in the country. They probably will be if that's the case, but it won't be like, oh my God, Nebraska's back. I don't think, you'd have to do something probably in that Ohio State game. And I don't know if there's any other game that provides that opportunity for Nebraska this year. Now that we look at who else is on the schedule, USC is pretty good, obviously.
I think that would do it.
I don't think Wisconsin and Iowa would do it. I know UCLA wouldn't do it. So those are all the games left after that. So
just Indiana first, and then Ohio State and USC.
Indiana doesn't do it. That's for sure. I mean,
you think Nebraska would be a top 10 team if it goes 7-0 into Columbus? And obviously this depends on variables, what's happening around the country.
Yeah, they're 3-0 now. They would have beaten a ranked team this week. They would have maybe beaten a ranked Rutgers team. Purdue doesn't do anything for you. Indiana's going to be close. Yeah, I mean,
Indiana will be ranked. I think Indiana has a better chance of being unbeaten when that game happens than Nebraska does.
Interesting. Yeah, they'll be.
And I really mean that. I was joking about Indiana earlier, but Indiana has a bye week and a cream puff game, and Northwestern, and then someone else in the Big Ten that didn't frighten me.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't looked at Indiana's September schedule yet. But kudos to you. I mean, they were the number 8 team when they went to Wisconsin in 2016. They had the same lead up basically.
Yeah,
I mean they beat Oregon at home. They played Indiana on the road.
Could happen.
Yeah,
it could happen. Top 10. I tend to think like they might be just outside the top 10 because the schedule. Well, the schedule looks like it's going to be better. Indiana also has Maryland at home on September 28th, so
tricky.
That's the other game. I think Indiana is going to be 5-0 going into Nebraska. That'll be Indiana will be a top 20 team. Nebraska, if it's 6-0 in that game, will be a top 20 team, maybe a top 15 team. So that's a big one. The other topic that I wanted to get to that came out of that same clip from Matt Rhule, and this is what the question was geared toward. I asked him about the challenge of creating situations that mimic close games, situational moments that they go to great lengths to create in the scrimmages in preseason camp, and then usually the season takes care of itself in getting the team ready for those things. Well, they've played 3 games now without anything in the second half that resembled a pressure situation. The games have been in hand at halftime. They've been able to work on things in the second half and just try to milk the clock, run the ball for their 75 yards that they want in the fourth quarter and just put it to bed. So that it would stand to reason that you might want to do some things differently in practice so that you're still getting those reps and you're still getting that competitive feel, and you know what it's like as best as you can simulate it before you get to a game. There's going to be a game coming up pretty quick here, I would expect, where Nebraska is going to need to make plays in the second half in order to win. And he said, yeah, they try to do it on Thursdays. So can that replace it? Do you think? Can that allow Nebraska to be ready when they get in that when the Huskers get in that spot?
You never know until you know. I've been thinking about this a lot over the first 3 weeks of the season, but I think about the signs, right? Like what do we have to go off so far? And man, did they answer the bell for that Colorado game? And that was an emotional thing. I was at least curious about Nebraska going in. How are they going to be able to we know that they're going to play hard, but is it going to emotionally throw something off in the chemistry of how makes you play football? And the answer was clearly no. Like, they passed that test. I think every sort of question that is related to this so far, it's been, they've done pretty well. They've handled this pretty well. The lead up to this, the specific situations in a game coming through on, I can't think of great examples right now off the top of my head, but like all the warning signs on, do we have a team that's going to kind of, go into a hole and go into the fetal position when it gets to be crunch time? I don't think that's on the table for this group. I don't feel that way. Now, they still have to play in close games, and you still have to make the plays when you have to make them. But I don't think Nebraska is going to be this group that you get into the fourth quarter and all of a sudden you got to drive to go win it. It's not going to shoot its own foot off like it has in the past. Will it go win it? We'll see. You still have to do that, but like it's at least not going to kill itself. It's not going to take itself out of these games. That's a huge step.
I think that's accurate. I think, right. If Nebraska has a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter, you don't have to worry about them giving it away. But if it's a situation where they have to go win a game in the fourth quarter, the jury's out. Remains to be seen. How does the freshman quarterback, for as great as he's been, look at that point? So, all right. After the break, we are going to talk about the Big Ten group chat, the coaches group text. That is coming up next. All right, Mitch Sherman here to tell you about a new sponsor of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Have you heard about Roy? It stands for Return on You, and it is a new platform that you, the fans, can use to get involved in NIL like never before by making contributions directly to your favorite teams. By supporting players directly, you can help shape rosters, retain talent, and keep your favorite athletes out of the portal. NIL has changed the game for athletes. Roy changes the NIL game for fans. Engage with athletes on their NIL journey. By using Roy, fans not only support the athletes, but they also become part of their name, image, and likeness journey, helping them succeed on and off the field. Get the Roy app for iOS or Android and start making an impact. Use referral code LOCKEDON for an opportunity to win $5,000 in cash. Visit Roy.com for more details. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Get off the sidelines and into the game today with Roy.
All right, welcome back. Connor Happer, Mitch Sherman with you. Connor Happer from 1620 The Zone in Omaha. Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Here on a Tuesday, we'll hear from Nebraska assistants coordinators today. Heard from Matt Rhule yesterday at his Monday press conference. These are two coaches, Matt Rhule and Brett Bielema, that do have a relationship. They often talk about their mutual respect for one another. In fact, both of them talked about it at their Monday press conferences on Monday. And here's a little sampling of that. This is Matt Rhule talking about the relationship with Brett Bielema and other Big Ten coaches.
He's a leader amongst the Big Ten coaches. He's on the AFCA committee and some other different things. So he's always very, very involved with all the issues and all the things that are happening. Does a great job at that. Very personable, really just a really, really good guy. We have a Big Ten coaches group chat to discuss issues. I think he heads up a lot of that. So I think he's, great about those things. I had a chance to meet his wife this year. They're a lovely family. So I have a lot of respect for him.
We love when coaches respect each other. But we heard group chat, and now our brains are starting to float off in different directions. So
that's all I heard. That's all I heard. They have a group chat. Is this right, a group chat? Is it on? What do you think? They go on just text, plain text?
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, unless I don't know if they're on like Slack or like
No way. There's no possible way. Like, can you imagine if you had to get if like Kirk Ferentz was like going through the how to install WhatsApp? So there's no way that this is anything but just a group text. And we've heard some fun feedback on this, like which coach has the Android phone and creates the green bubble that ruins it for everyone else. So you can't edit and add and remove and change the name and all the stuff that you can do if just everybody had the same kind of phone. It seems to be that the conventional logic dictates that would be Kirk Ferentz, who is the oldest coach in the room. I don't know. I think Kirk's up on the iPhone.
Think so too. I think Kirk's kind of cool. He's or at least the people around him, like he owns what he is, right? You have to kind of own who you are. I feel like Ferentz does a pretty good job at that. So I wouldn't peg him for that.
Some questions. One question is how quickly do you think they removed Jim Harbaugh from the chat after last season?
He could still pop in every once in a while and say, how's it going over there, guys?
I feel like Harbaugh in the chat, like he added nothing and then randomly dropped in with some kind of a comment that made zero sense to anything that the people were talking about, that the coaches were talking about.
See, that was the first thing that came to my head this afternoon when he started talking about this. He was like you talked about the group chat, and I'm thinking, when are they group chatting? Like what is worthy of a text to every other Big Ten coach if you're one of the Big Ten coaches?
There's no way they just like, hey, are you guys watching Notre Dame?
Yeah, right. Or are they?
They're losing to Northern Illinois, and
they could really use some good wishes today because we got Texas. Sharon Moore's like, come on, we got Texas today. Can we get some thumbs up in the chat or something like that? No, I don't think this is getting used very often between these coaches.
Right. We're projecting on this what we would like it to be. It's probably something that gets used like twice a year when there's like a big convention or some rule changes, or if Bielema runs this thing, like he's got to get a message out to every coach, like reminder, there's a meeting next Tuesday or something along those lines. But no, I want this to be something that's exactly like my fantasy football league group text with, you don't even want to know what, I'm not going to go there, but other thoughts. I
wonder
which TJ Fleck. Is he
yeah,
answering every question? Is he posting memes? Like, where are we going with this?
I think he has this really weird energy that would probably lead him to being over reactionary in this group chat, certainly. Answering all the questions of people. Yes, Coach Bielema, I'll be there. Thumbs up emoji. One of those.
Post pictures of himself at the gym.
I was trying to think like which coach recently has become a meme that like if that got thrown, like if there was a good screenshot of Brett Bielema out there, is that getting thrown in the chat? Just like, hey guys, just put it there. Comment on this.
I mean, Lincoln Riley can be a meme.
Yeah. With his brisket. Yeah.
I think Kurt Signetti is quickly getting to the place where he could become a meme. James Franklin has been a meme at various times.
Yep.
Mike Loxley, he sometimes says some things that could make him a meme. He did that at Big Ten Media Days this year. So there are options aplenty. Ryan Day, I think because of the program that he coaches, could be a meme. He seems to me like the guy who would be annoyed by a lot of the things that were going on in the group chat. Like he might actually have, he might not even man it. Like he might have given it to like his personal assistant to answer the questions on the group chat, like, and then just report back to Coach Day about what's going on.
He treats the group chat like an AP vote.
Yeah, right. Exactly. His SID answers the questions. New coaches to the league, like Jed Fish, Jonathan Smith. I think these guys, they in my warped reality of what this is, like they're sitting on their phones, they're like waiting for someone to pop into the group chat. Like, is it,
what?
I want to get back to you. They answer it like 1 minute after there was a message in there. So I don't know. It's a fun thought. I'm glad Matt Rhule let us know that there's a group chat for Big Ten coaches. And now I'm going to be thinking about it all the time. Like when something's happening Big Ten related, or there's a team that lays an egg, I want to know how this is going over in the Big Ten group chat. Yeah,
there's going to be parodies of this, which I can't wait for. I mean, I'm sure that'll be good comedy for somebody. I was thinking of one more, Deshaun Foster. he goes in and he just introduces
immediate.
himself. He's like, "Hey guys, I'm Deshaun. I'm in LA. It's us in USC." Yeah. And that's it. That's all he says the entire time. He just has to reintroduce himself a lot.
I think that would be part of the parody. If there is a parody about this group chat, that's getting in there for sure. All right. Having some fun there with Big Ten football coaches. I'm sure they do none of those things in the group chat, but we wanted to get that out there today.
You gotta maybe do some asking on this. Maybe this is a media days thing to like.
It's definitely media days. Oh, there's no doubt about it. Next year at Big Ten Media Days, this is going to be a topic. I wish we'd have known about this in July, but thank you for Matt Rhule for shedding light on this today. After the break, we are going to talk about some personnel matters that came up on Monday with Matt Rhule, including news on Riley Van Poppel and on Micah Mazzccua. That's coming up next.
All right, it's Tapper for the FanDuel Sportsbook. You've heard us talk about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Now we have something a little bit extra for you this week. It is now through September 22nd. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. So just imagine that. Just if you're, I've always wanted this, just to take a crack at Sunday Ticket. It's there. I want to have the ability to do it. It's nice to have the extra channels, and then you could octo box all of them or whatever you'd like to do. You could do that with YouTube and YouTube TV, and of course the FanDuel Sportsbook. Place that $5 bet, and you are going to have this at your fingertips. And who knows? You might find this is something you can't live without. With your YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon at a market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel any time. Head to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Download America's #1 sportsbook today. FanDuel.com/lockedon.
Okay, final segment on this Tuesday. Mitch Sherman of The Athletic here with you alongside Connor Happer of 1620 The Zone. Thank you for watching us on YouTube, if that is your preferred choice of consuming the Locked On Nebraska podcast. If you're doing that, please like the show, subscribe, leave a comment. If you're on the podcast listening platforms, also subscribe, like the show, do whatever it is that you want to do that will be good for expanding our audience. Finishing up with some news and notes from Matt Rhule at his Monday media availability on this short week. Huskers will be meeting with the media again today. On Tuesday, coordinators and players. And then Wednesday, Matt Rhule is going to do his normal Thursday wrap up the week kind of interview session, a quick one before they take Thursday and do a walkthrough. Friday, of course, is game day. Will be interesting in Lincoln to see how all of the logistics work on a day when class is in session, when people are working downtown, when the fans are coming in from different corners of the state to descend on Lincoln on a day that's not a Saturday. First ever Friday game at Memorial Stadium. It's going to be it's going to present some challenges, but I'm sure they'll pull it off well.
Non-Black Friday game.
You're right. They have played games on Black Friday.
They've had many
First
of
ever
those.
Friday night. I'm just completely thrown by that because I've been thinking that it's the first ever. Where did I read? How did I say this? It's the first ever Friday night game at Memorial Stadium. There's never been a Black Friday game at night in Lincoln. There is one in Iowa City this year.
Is that true? That's probably true.
Yeah, I don't think they've ever played. Not Colorado, not Oklahoma.
Like the Black Friday games always end at night, if but they start at 2:30 in the afternoon because the sun sets at about 5:30. And
Black Friday is not really a Friday because it's not a work day. It's not a day where school's in session, but it's still a Friday. So that's a great point that you bring up. All right, from Matt Rhule on Monday was asked about Riley Van Poppel, who was one of the true freshmen that loomed large last season. The Illinois game, in fact, he loomed very large. Riley Poppel had the 4th down defensive stop at the goal line that just catapulted Nebraska's energy and momentum in that game coming off the Michigan loss. And they credit that play on Illinois' opening possession for springboarding Nebraska to victory on that Friday night in Champaign, Illinois. he is headed for a 4-game redshirt this season, which comes as something of a surprise. He played in the first 2 games of the year, did not play on Saturday against Northern Iowa. And the thought process is here, play the long game. Riley Van Poppel entered this decision by talking with coaches, talking with his parents, and Matt Rhule told him, look, you can play 8 to 10 snaps a game this year as a backup, or you can come back next year as a sophomore and be Ty Robinson.
Right. I mean, it's interesting how they're doing that. And then they had that, it was interesting to hear him say it out loud about how they had that kind of red shirt share plan with him and Kai Wallen last year. And like that, I thought that was just like, that's how he always talked about it, but I had never heard the coach really discuss it that way. And clearly they look at themselves this year and they say, wow, we have a lot of depth, and we also don't want to use a whole season of eligibility for a guy like Riley Van Poppel just to play 8 plays a game in rotational duty. Like we would rather take the year of him where he's giving us 60 plays and he's Ty Robinson, that was Matt Rhule's words, not mine. Like he's next year's Ty Robinson, or he's in 2 years Ty Robinson, rather than just play him 8 plays here and waste a year of eligibility. I think it's smart. And it definitely underscores Nebraska's depth at that position. I mean, they could go deep, and the way the redshirt thing works is great, because if they really, really do need him, if there's an injury or a rash of injuries, they could just play him. They could just play him. And so, like, I think it's really cool how they're thinking about that. And I think it takes a lot of maturity from a player, their side of things, to be like, hey, you played last year. You were kind of an important piece to what we were doing. You were kind of like the 4th or 5th guy last year, ended up being that. We have an interesting thing for you this year. How about this? And it takes a pretty mature kid to accept that. So I thought that was that's really intriguing to see how they view that. And then there's a long-term plan kind of for everybody.
In theory, this works well because it enhances his NFL chance. Now he redshirts this year, and he'll have 3 seasons to get himself ready for the NFL. Where if he played this year as a backup, he'd still have 2 seasons, seemingly enough. But the fact that players want to buy into this process where they're going to be in college for 5 years, if you're not committed to being in college for 5 years, there's no sense in even going down this road. You might as well just go ahead and play and get more reps, and you're a junior next year, and you've got 2 years as a starter, and then you can go off to the NFL. This signifies that Riley Van Poppel and with his approach, he wants to be a part of Nebraska football for 5 years. In practice, it usually doesn't work out like this. Like, I've had conversations with other coaches in football and in other sports. In fact, a conversation just a few weeks ago with John Cook about this, and how he doesn't have any intention of redshirting anyone, because when he does, and he thinks that he's acting in a player's best interest, they just go in the transfer portal when the season's over. It happened to him last year with some top players. And, Matt Rhule may end up in that situation this offseason, and he may kind of change his tune about the way that he wants to do this. But right now, he's committed to this. And I don't think Riley Van Poppel is going to go in the transfer portal. I don't think that they would have gone down this road with him if that was a possibility. But you always have to think about it. Like, players are going to recruit off Nebraska's roster. It's the same thing with Malachi Coleman. This is the plan that they're going with him. Like, hey, we got Isaiah Nayor, we got Jamal Banks this season. How about you take this year off, work on your game, help us as a member of the scout team. You can still play in 4 games, and you preserve a year of eligibility after we had to burn that red shirt a year ago when you were a true freshman. It sounds great, but what happens when program X comes and says, here's a big bag of cash for you to leave that place that wouldn't play you after you went out and showed your stuff as a true freshman? And you hope that in all of those cases, the maturity remains.
Yeah, only certain type of players can kind of do this. I was just looking at quickly one more on this before we get to a couple more deals before we get out of here. So Nebraska defended 75 plays on Saturday night against Northern Iowa. Dash Hutmaker played 37 plays. Ty Robinson played 37 plays. Cam Lenhart, 34. MJ Sherman, 29. Prince Will, 23. Let's see. Mason Goldman, 18. Keona Davis, 17, Dylan Parrott 15, Kai Wallen 14, Brody Tagaloa 13, James Williams 13, Vincent Carroll Jackson 11, Elijah Judy 10. I mean, and Ishmael Smith Flores too. Like how many guys did I just name? like 10,
15, or 12.
So it only works if you have that kind of depth, and they feel like they definitely.
Did you say Keona Davis? He was in there. Yeah. Shout out to Brody Tagaloa. That I believe was his first action at Nebraska after coming back from the car injury that he was in last summer. So that was a big deal for him to get on the field. And shout out Mason Goldman, the Gretna Dragon, getting some action early in the season this year. He had a sack in the season opener. All kinds of injuries had held him back, had back injuries, and just hadn't been getting traction in the program for his first 1 year. And now it seems like they're getting some quality reps out of him. He had some tackles, a few tackles against Northern Iowa, or a couple of tackles. So maybe there's big things ahead, or at least a promising future for some of the young defensive linemen who are getting action as Riley Van Poppel takes a break and plays on the scout team and gives the Nebraska offensive line a better look than you might expect that they would normally get week after week on the scouts.
Micah Mazzccua, our last little nugget here from today. So Micah Mazzccua, if people didn't notice, was not in the game on Saturday night against Northern Iowa, nor was he with the team at all. He was not at the stadium, at least according to my eyes. From not
on the sideline, that's for sure.
Not on the sideline, not with the reserves, not with the injured players or anything like that. He wasn't there. So he was gone, and Rhule said after the game he's still with the team, but he wasn't with us this week. Where does that lead? That leads us to Monday, where Rhule says, now correct me if I'm wrong here, Mitch, he is with the team, but he is out again this week.
That's correct. Yeah, back with the team. Seemingly, I didn't hear anything today that led me to believe otherwise, and that was my understanding, was that he would be back with the team this week. But Rhule laid it out that he's not playing. He's not playing against Illinois. So 2 games, and this is something that dates back to the Colorado game. You could hear in Rhule's tone today that he was very clear that Henry Lutovsky played the fourth quarter against the Buffs 2 weeks ago in place of Mazzccua. So whatever's going on here, it stems from the Colorado game. And I don't presume to know the details, but we'll see if Mazzccaa's back next week in a spot where they're ready to play him against Purdue, how exactly he fits into the lineup. Does he go back to his starting spot at right guard and Lutovsky becomes a swing guy, or is Mazzccua relegated to a reserve role, which would be a big change? He, I think, is Nebraska's most physical offensive lineman. I think he is Nebraska's meanest offensive lineman, the one who really has an opportunity as this year goes on in the Big Ten to set a tone for the way that the line plays, and maybe the best run blocker. So it'll be interesting to see a week from now what Matt Rhule says about the plan moving ahead with Mazzccua.
Yeah, it is. Like he just physically, I don't know the ins and outs of what makes it, but like he is physical, and he looks to me to be, sort of like a road grader type of player. Be a nice guy to have this week against a team that they're pretty physical and they're going to hit you. And Nebraska's going to try and run the ball a little bit. They're not going to have him at their disposal this week. Hopefully he's able to get back and provide something for Nebraska as we go on throughout the year yet. But you know how Matt Rhule is on these like individual players. He really is always, and it's an NFL, I think, style from a head coach. He's just like, we're not. One injury doesn't become too big ever with him. He's just like, we're just going to move to the next guy, and we're going to do what we do. That's the way that they've played it, and that's certainly the way they're doing it here.
Absolutely. All right, we'll be back on Wednesday to talk about Nebraska coordinators Tony White, Marcus Satterfield, QB Dylan Raiola, and everyone else who has words with the media on Tuesday afternoon. Thank you for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. Now go check out Locked On College Football. Make that podcast your second listen of the day. Spencer McLaughlin has got you covered. You can find the link to Locked On College Football in the description of this show. It is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.